We've lived through the world of the dot-com days, and we had desktop computing, then moved to mobile computing, and there was a whole app market and a whole app development systems and measurement around that. And now, we move to this zero UI, some people are calling it, where it's audio. There's nothing to look at. You're just talking and communicating. And so as we do that, we look to find interesting, innovative companies, and these are all relatively early stage, newer companies that are investing their time into how to build applications, in particular for advertisers, for marketers, and for media companies. So if I'm a media company, and suddenly, I've got to now find a way to get Alexa to, in some way, expose my content to a family that's in a house. How do I do that? How do I get my content accessible, discoverable? This is a real problem for somebody who's used to just sending it through the television or sending it through the radio. If I'm an advertiser, how do I interact with the consumer in a way that isn't offensive? How many people, I don't know how many people have ever sworn at Alexa, but we have a friend over at Amazon who talks about, we actually saying that they benefit from the swears, they benefit from the feedback. The feedback loop is critical. But now how do I feel about that if I'm a brand? I don't want Charmin coming into my house, stop that, make that stop. So anyway, this is this area that we're really curious about, and we're going to be looking at investing in on the venture side. And I think we have a real advantage, and one of the advantages is that Boston itself has been a real center of natural language processing. Companies that some of you may know, like Dragon Systems and SpeechWorks, all kind of rolled up into Nuance, have borne out into what today is a new investment over the last few years of Amazon, making Boston the center of sort of a dual center of excellence around voice tech and Alexa. So there's 2,000, amongst us all, there's 2,000 Amazon developers in Boston. I understand they're growing that group to 4,000, and it's really going to be a real center for that. So as you entrepreneurs are out there building all your traditional adtech stuff and video this, mobile that, and start thinking about voice. Start thinking about this new interface, this new platform, and how you could take some of the learnings you've had over the past decades of work in digital, and how do you bring that into the voice market? So anyway, that's just a brief introduction to it, and really glad to have this cast of characters here. We've had a pitch day yesterday with Progress Ventures, so we got to hear a little bit about Mari, but why don't we go down the line, and maybe if you could just introduce yourself and just tell briefly kind of what you've been up to, what you're working on. That'd be great.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Sure.
Can you guys hear me? Yes? Wonderful. So my name is Amit Busey. I'm founder and CEO of Witlingo. We're a Washington, D.C. based company, and our mission, or the reason why we exist, is to help companies launch Amazon Alexa skills, Google Assistant actions, but launch them in a way where the experience is meaningful and the skill or the action, sometimes both, have a business goal. I'm sorry.
Right off the bat, because I think
yes.
This is much a learning experience Absolutely. For a lot of people. So yeah.
So a skill, in essence, is a customized experience that you would build to do something specific on top of the Alexa out of the box. Alexa out of the box is things like the weather, what time is it, and so forth. And Amazon, from the get-go, early on, launched this SDK, software development kit, called the Alexa Skills Kit. That allows you to build a skill. This skill is the equivalent of a mobile app on the iPhone world. So that's what we do. We help companies launch these skills and actions that allows them to engage their customers through conversations.
Great. Yep. And you're based in
Washington, D.C.
Yes. Okay, great. Mari?
Hi, I'm Mari Joller, founder and CEO of Snackable. Snackable is in the business of making audio content discoverable in a new way. So what that means really is that we use machine learning, natural language processing to really deconstruct, analyze audio and understand what's inside of it and pull out kind of the most salient bits into short form listening experiences. So one is that we unlock the whole voice ecosystem for users in a new way. So instead of kind of robotic kind of extractions of Wikipedia articles. In response to your queries, you actually hear human voices, human stories, content from archives, and also new content. And secondly is actually creating operational efficiencies for organizations that are building, that are trying to get their content into the voice ecosystem. So we take an original piece of content and we build a portfolio of new products that can be served into the voice ecosystem.
So it gives an opportunity for something that a bunch of the people on the television side would know, which tune in, sort of being able to take a long form podcast and bring it down to, I think you call it a snack, that you could then use as a promotional piece to get people to come and listen to it.
Exactly,
Great.
Promotional piece, someone makes a voice query, now you actually have something relevant in your snack to kind of serve a response to that particular query, so now it has multi-purpose.
Yeah.
It's promotional, it's also informational, it's educational.
And your company is based in New York, but has some other international roots?
We do. We also have a technical office in Tallinn, Estonia.
Great. Looking forward to that diligence trip, personally.
Not in November.
So Stas, tell us about Instreamatic.
Hello everyone, my name is Stas. I'm CEO and founder of Instreamatic, and first of all, a big thank you to Pandora Partners for putting together this panel on voice tech. As far as Instreamatic, the best way to explain what we do would be by presenting you a use case. So imagine you're driving, listening to Pandora or Spotify, ad-supported version, and instead of getting a 30-second audio ad that you would get today, you would hear something like, hey, Starbucks is here. Do you want to skip the line today and have a warm cup of coffee waiting for you? And you can respond by saying, yes, sure, I'm up for it. And then we'll unpack the ad, give you all the details, or even show you where the nearest Starbucks is. Or you can say, no, I don't like coffee, I don't like Starbucks, leave me alone. And we'll say, right, sorry about that, we'll try harder next time. And we are this voice AI platform that enables that capability. So we basically connect brands and consumers with this intelligence layer that allows them to have ongoing conversation.
Great, and I got the benefit of having a demo yesterday. Appreciate you coming by my office. And you're developing and actually finding from the interactions that the answer of no is actually helpful too, right? Getting that negative feedback. Tell me about that and how that informs other things you're doing.
Yeah, we think that a no is just the beginning of a relationship between a brand and a consumer. And it changes, I think it reinvents the fundamentals of marketing, because marketing today is based on clicks. Clicks means interest. But brands don't know anything about people who are not interested. And that's why they chase us with the same ads over and over again, thinking that if they hammer it down 20 times, we'll finally buy a product. But it turns out we don't. But now, since brands can actually hear what people saying and why they're not interested, they can come back with a different message, with a better offer, with a different product, or just create an ongoing relationship by just entertaining people. So we think that the no component of voice space and voice advertising is actually the biggest value that voice space creates, even from a bigger marketing perspective, because now this data can be taken to other media channels like video and social media and on and on.
Great. So Ahmed, I've been around a while doing this ad tech thing, and we see cycles and we see repeat patterns. I actually remember back in '94 or '95, I was working in an agency that we built, building the first websites for law firms and real estate firms in Boston. And people were like, we would walk in and we'd say, you need a website. And they were like, what the hell, get out of here, what the hell are you talking about? And so then we went to the app development world, and people were like, oh, you need an app, and then mobile experience. How do you talk them through the need for a voice app or a skill? To walk me through that experience.
Absolutely. So the big difference between, say, now and 1994 is that the VP of Digital Marketing has seen, in their professional span, these disruptions.
Yeah.
They've seen the internet, they've seen mobile, they've seen social in its various incarnations, right? Facebook, why should we use Facebook? All of a sudden you must use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right? They've seen these patterns, and so we lean on that. We tell them, look, this is a massive disruptions. The numbers don't lie, and by next year, 50% of the households will have one of these speakers, in addition to people using voice for search on their mobile. And therefore, it is a big wave that's coming. and therefore you should have presence in voice because people use voice and are using it on a daily basis. It's part of their routine, you know. So that's one pitch, is the fact that there's a pattern, but also the fact that there's a real value here. People like to use voice because it's easy to use, right? And then to close the deal with them is to say, look, we will get you up and running for less than $10,000 a year, Mr. or Mrs. VP of Marketing, as I was telling you, right? Right. So the risk of investing now versus not investing yet, investing now versus not investing, a year from now you may regret it big time. The worst thing that can happen to you is, if nothing happens with this channel, is that you've spent 10K. And usually that closes the deal, right?
Yeah.
So we do lean on the fact that there were patterns before, number one. Number two, that adoption is real.
Yeah, and I think this whole world of skills is interesting. I mean, on some levels, a skill feels like in its form today, and I know it's early, feels like a web page or feels like a home page and potentially a site, a tree of answers and responses. And I kind of wonder, and you know, I think certainly want to ask the people at Amazon at some point, but why wouldn't all skills be available almost like the internet? You know, you don't necessarily, I mean, I think there's that sort of barrier of I need to think to know to download a skill or to make a skill available to my experience, and then it works. And I know that I've been hearing that Amazon is now sort of, I don't know if it's selling, but like there used to be the whole domain names. You could go buy the domain, like if you're, you know, Toyota, you could go buy Toyota.com, and then you could have the Toyota website. And so if you went to the DNS and said Toyota.com, it would get you in. But right now there's a little bit of that barrier of you have to sort of promote the skill somewhere else to then get it enabled. Is that right? And then
yeah. So there's Amazon that's playing, also Google that's playing. Amazon you have to enable it explicitly. Google you do not. As soon as you publish it, it's available. And you're right. You have to, as a business, you have to promote it. You know, whether it is in your flyer or it's in social properties, you have to tell people that it exists so that they can use it.
Right.
And it's crucial that when they invoke it, that it gives them some good experience so that they come back for it. Yeah.
So that gets us to search and discovery. We happen to have an expert here in voice for that. So Mari, you know, there's a huge catalog of voice content out in the world, and you know, I think many companies have tried to figure out, like, how do I monetize that? How do I bring that back to life? How do I make it accessible? Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences, maybe with like NPR and others that, you know, where you're helping to build the ability to make this content discoverable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the analogy that Ahmed used in terms of kind of where we are with voice. It's like when we think about search and discovery of content, we are with voice kind of where we used to be with web in the times of Yahoo. Before we had, you know, this Google search engine where you just went to Yahoo and there was like a bunch of links that you knew that worked, and you would click on something to like learn about politics, another thing to learn about technology. It feels similar at the moment. And audio is even more challenging because it is a kind of a black box. It's super linear, it's really monolithic. So you start listening to something and there's really no expectation of how long it will take, you know, sort of the formats are kind of very, very analog. So, you know, what we're doing actually is thinking about, you know, sort of how do people actually, how do they use voice, or how do they retrieve information with voice? So we're trying to move away from this very kind of V1.0 where you have this Alexa morning briefing, and you say, well, I want, you know, news from CNN and BBC and ABC, et cetera, and every single news broadcaster just publishes the same, you know, bucket of news stories, and then, you know, as a user, you know, we break our experiences ourselves usually. So we say, oh yeah, I want all these things, and give me gardening and, you know, all these other things too that I think I'm interested in. And before you know, your morning briefing is 2 hours long and you don't use it. So how do we kind of deconstruct these experiences that are much more personalized and much more contextual and shorter in format? And, you know, the way that we've been doing this is really leveraging machine learning because it's really the only way to do that at scale. So imagine a different time of morning briefing where you said, you know, I'm interested in tech, I'm interested in international politics, I'm interested in fitness. And you just get stories, individual stories. You say more of this, no, next one. So you have much more kind of like a natural way of interacting with content. And, you know, recognizing that media companies' resources are also constrained, we can help, you know, leverage the existing content where there's lots of it, it's really rich, a lot of it is evergreen, and resurface that in voice in a way that's really meaningful and much more kind of, sort of easy to consume.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, do I want one of those. Like, so you wake up and you just sort of say, make me smarter. Give me some interesting things instead of, and it's sort of going back to the newspaper, right? Which is, there used to be this thing that you get delivered to your home called a newspaper for the young. Anyway, but I mean, I love that serendipity of discovery that you really lose in that sort of linear search, or or where you're just directed to, like, it's just so programmed. You have that opportunity for that serendipity to learn more and maybe to also ask for more, right? So you're getting a little bit into an article maybe through one of your snacks, and then say, I want to hear more on that, right? Yeah. Is that part of the idea?
Absolutely. It creates like a whole different kind of hierarchy of experiences. Sort of search is very short, but if you have absolutely no aid of a screen, you have to be really relevant, and what you serve up to the user also has to be good to listen to. So actually that's one of the hardest problems that we're solving, is like semantically, how do you give somebody a piece of audio that you say, okay, this is your response to query you just made. It's like, who's talking? Why are they talking about this? Sort of why is it relevant for me? And so it's...
And of course, you're now also kind of tracking and keeping track of all the things that person's interested in, which transitions nicely to our advertiser over here, or our advertising technology side, where you're able to then take some of those clues, maybe from others, from other data, even outside of the voice world, and transition some of that data into what you do, but also maybe transition it back out. So maybe talk a little bit about, you were saying when I met with you, how some of the information, and I'm really curious about this idea of the negative influence, right? The negative response can actually influence other parts of advertising outside of the voice ecosystem.
We don't call it negative response.
I mean,
we call it no interest, because the fact that a person engaged, it's a very positive thing. The negative thing is when they just ignore it.
And you're seeing high rates, right? Remind me of the numbers you were seeing in terms of just people. I mean, it's almost like if someone's talking to you and asks you a question, you can't help but answer, right? Isn't that sort of part of it?
Yeah, that's just a natural thing that we feel like, hey, there was a question, now there is silence. Probably should try something. And people do try. So on average, we see that 15 to 20% of everybody who heard our kind of ads respond.
Wait, just hold on. 15 to 20% engagement rate in voice. Do you hear me out there? I mean, that is a major number. All you ad tech digital people, we're like at maybe 0.75, right? So that's amazing amount of engagement.
Yeah, and not just the numbers are hard, the quality of engagement is different, because it's not top of mind awareness or clicks, it's actually saying something out loud. So it's completely different internal dynamics. And also I wanted to add a comment on a discovery problem. So search is one of the ways to solve the discovery problem when you know what you're looking for. So imagine there is no Uber today and it's just getting started. How would you know about it? You wouldn't do a search like, hey, is there a ride-sharing app already or not? You're not doing search like that. And so advertising comes into play. Yeah. And advertising is one of the ways to actually solve the discovery problem in voice especially. And to your initial question about the data, yes, so we see that if a brand takes all this information back, let's say information on people who are not interested, feed it into their DSPs, which optimizes buying video ads, social media, banners, everything, and just make a conclusion, all right, this person said that she's definitely not interested. Let's not waste our ad money on this person within this campaign. So in a way, voice ads allows you to save money on other channels, and that significantly increases ROI of overall kind of campaign spend.
Now, one of the things I learned yesterday, which I thought was quite interesting, is that you're actually not operating right now on the assistant devices. So you're not on Alexa, you're not on Google Assistant quite yet. You're really operating off of digital audio stream ads, such as through Pandora and Spotify. Is that right? And that's because some of those systems have not unlocked the ability to have the two-way conversation. Is that part of it?
Yes, a lot of apps, especially those who have background content consumption. So music is an obvious one, but then there is fitness, meditation. So all of these apps, they're introducing voice control, I don't know how it's called, voice interfaces. And if we're talking about ad-supported media, then we fit in nicely.
Yeah, we so we sold a company, in fact, Davis over there, actively involved in and sold AdsWiz to Pandora last year, and we gained a lot of exposure through that experience, and that's sort of part of the way we discover these new things is you go deep on something on the banking side and say, gee, that was a good idea, let's go invest in the next set, you know. And anyway, so we learned a lot about that through AdsWiz and the Pandora transaction, and you're working with Pandora now, right? And describe a little bit about that relationship with them for you. I mean, they're giving you exposure, opportunity to a whole bunch of advertising units, and you're seeing a lot of your brands kind of saying, yeah, this idea of arresting the consumer from just the stream and actually having them stop and get engaged is a novel thing, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say Pandora's team is phenomenal. It's like they're amazing people who work there. So they're so looking far away into the future. In terms of our relationship and partnership, there is not much I can share publicly, but you know, we already announced that Pandora and Instreamatic are introducing voice ads as we speak.
Great, yeah. Great. Well, I think that's great, and I think, you know, one of the sort of the quiet, and maybe quiet because we're all wearing headphones, but the quiet sort of monster that's grown is digital audio. You know, the growth of podcasts, I've seen some of the numbers in terms of the listening rate. You know, you go to any college campus and everyone's walking across the campus, they're listening, they're getting news and information. It's like kind of staggering numbers. And so it's certainly important to have the monetization piece. I think the discovery component is critical, and then certainly, you know, well, what is the content? So maybe we'll go back to you a little bit, Ahmed. And what are some of, I'd love to just hear, and I think that just to help this creative bunch of business and business development and executive types think about what are some of the great use cases that you've seen that have worked, you know, for brands and media companies that you've done work with.
Definitely, I'll share a couple of use cases, and I'll share them because they are things that I did not imagine until I hit with reality, right?
Yeah.
One of them is direct marketing. So I still get, even though we're in 2019, I still get in my mail every single day, you know, flyers, things that, promotions from my local plumber and so forth, right? And so one of these companies who was sending one of these flyers, they reached out and said, you know, we want to add an Alexa there. Alexa launch, so and so.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you get the flyer, picking up the phone is a lot more work than emailing, than saying Alexa or emailing and so forth, right? And lo and behold, they saw that actually people were saying, Alexa, launch this, right? So again, that's an example I could not have imagined, because you think that, you don't think about the old style marketing, but in fact, there's a marriage between the two that just makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember the days when I used to fight as a marketer with, you know, people saying, you've got to put it on www.ourcompany.com, otherwise, right. And then we were sending out direct mail. Yeah. And I remember, so direct mail continues to be the on-ramp to a lot of these platforms. But even to know that to know that you can ask.
You can ask, and the thing is, because voice is, it's easy to ask. It's a lot easier to ask than to do anything else almost, right? So the worst thing that can happen, you ask, you get something, it's not interesting, well, we didn't invest a lot of effort, right? Yeah. So the low-hanging fruit is there. And then the other one, I was telling more about it, is that I could not have imagined, is there is this company who takes care of managing your money when, let's say you leave a job, right, and your employer wants you to make sure that your money in the whatever investment that you had with them goes back to you. So they create a money market account, right? And then you get this letter in the mail that says, hey, your former employer has opened a money market account for you. And you're like, is this a fraud, right? Yeah. And so in the letter itself, they have Alexa launch, right? And so that, when somebody sees that, there's a level of trust that now is all of a sudden given to this letter, because it's an Amazon thing. People, trust Amazon, so you lean on that, right? And it's easy to do, right? Again, another example I could not have imagined, right? Yeah,
that's great. So we're going to have like a whole integral ad science 2.0 that we invested in and we're very happy with. So now we have to like prepare ourselves for voice fraud and all the opportunities there. So this is going to be It's a great platform, a great new horizon for us to open our eyes to. I encourage any of you who are interested in this area to come and talk to my team. James Hamilton on my team has also been very active in this area. We've got some great resources even in this crowd who are starting to help us out. And this is a great group of companies that we've discovered that we're very, very fortunate to have an opportunity to get to know. So I want to thank my panelists. I'm a minute over, but you know, it's all right. We're going to be okay. Well, thank you very much this afternoon for coming and listening, and we look forward to continuing the voice conversation and having conversational search instead of, you know, Googling and having to come up with words that we think that Google will appreciate. We can actually now talk to it, right? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.